Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math. And today we're learning about writing linear equations, and we want to write the slope-intercept form here.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.
So, if I was given this problem, 3x minus 2y equals negative 16. Now we have our slope-intercept form here, and what we want to do is really just get y by itself. First step to do that, subtract a 3x to both sides, and we're left with a negative 2y equals a negative 3x minus 16. They are not like terms, can't really combine them. We now have to divide by a negative 2, opposite of multiplication here, to both sides, leaving me y by itself. Negatives cancel out here, right, for the negative 3 and the negative 2, so we have 3/2 positive x, and remember, negative 2 needs to go into the negative 16, or minus 16. That becomes a positive 8, and our answer here is fairly simple. Y equals 3/2 x plus 8. If I was given this problem, 13x minus 11y equals a negative 12, and I want to write it in slope-intercept form. The key is to get y by itself. So to do that, let's bring everything over. We have a positive 13x, so we subtract 13x to both sides. Okay? That leaves us with a negative 11y here on the left. And let's write the x values first. Remember, these are not like terms, can't combine them. Negative 13x minus 12. From there, we want to divide both sides by negative 11 because there's multiplication going on right there. Divide by negative 11 to both sides. Now, this gives us y by itself on the left, but the right-hand side we need to simplify. Negative 13 divided by negative 11. Two negatives divided make a positive, so we have 13 over 11x. There's our m value, the slope. Then we have negative 12 divided by negative 11. Remember, this negative 11 goes to both sides. Again, two negatives being divided, positive, so plus 12 over 11. Keep it in fraction form, makes it easy. That's our y-intercept. And so here's our final answer, y equals 13 over 11x plus 12 over 11. I was given this problem, 9x minus 7y equals a negative 7, and I need to write that in slope-intercept form. Main goal here, get y by itself. So we have a positive 9x here. Let's subtract that to both sides. Not like terms here. Can't really combine them, but it cancels that out. Negative 7y here is equal to, let's write the 9x first, minus a 7. Okay? Almost there. We have a negative 7y. That's multiplication. Divide both sides by negative 7. And remember, weird way of saying it, these cancel out, and this negative 7 goes to both parts on the right. So we have y here equals, well, 9 divided by negative 7 is just negative 9/7. Keep it as a fraction, makes it easier. X, that's our slope here, the m value. Then negative 7 divided by negative 7, negatives divided by negatives are positive, 7 divided by 7 is 1. We have plus 1 here, that's our y-intercept, and now we have our answer in slope-intercept form. Y equals a negative 7 over 9x plus 1. If I was given this equation, x minus 3y equals 6, and I want to write that in slope-intercept form. First thing to think about, again, get y by itself. To do that, we have an x here. Let's bring the x over. Subtract an x to both sides, and we're left with negative 3y equals, let's write the negative x first. Negative x, now it's a positive 6, plus 6 there. Okay? Again, not like terms, can't really combine them, so keep them separate. X is canceled here. Now we have negative 3 times y. Opposite of multiplication, division. Divide both sides by negative 3. And secret here is to make sure that negative 3 goes to both parts. Y is now by itself on the left-hand side, and we have negative x divided by negative 3 to deal with. Well, negative divided by negative is a positive, but remember that x has a 1 that's right there, really in front of it. It's 1x, okay? So negative divided by negative is a positive. 1 divided by 3, 1/3. We have x here. Don't forget, though, we have two parts. 6 divided by negative 3, that's going to be a negative 2. So we have minus 2 here. And now we have our answer. 1/3 is our slope. Negative 2 is our y-intercept. And our final answer here in slope-intercept form is y equals 1/3 x minus 2. I was given this problem. 6x plus 5y equals negative 15, and I want to write that in slope-intercept form. First step here, let's get the 6x to the other side. Remember, y by itself is our goal. Subtract a 6x here. 6x's cancel, and we're left with 5y by itself on the left equals a negative 6x minus 15. They are not like terms. We cannot combine them. So 5y is now by itself on the left, almost there. Multiplication separates 5 and the y. Opposite of multiplications, division, divide both sides by y. This gives us y by itself on the left, which is great, but on the right, we need to simplify this. 5 goes to both parts, so negative 6 divided by positive 5. Can't simplify that really anymore. We have a negative 6/5 x. That is our slope, negative 6/5. Then we have negative 15 divided by 5. Well, negative 15 divided by 5 is a minus 3, or subtract 3 here. And that is our y-intercept, negative 3. So our final answer here, fairly simple, y equals a negative 6/5 x minus 3. I was given this problem. 4x minus y equals 1. And we want to write that in slope-intercept form. Goal here, get y by itself. First step to do that, we have a 4x here. Let's bring it to the other side. Positive 4x, opposite of positive is a negative, really. So addition, opposite that, subtraction. Subtract a 4x here, and do that to both sides of the equation. Minus 4x cancels out, and we're left with a negative y here on the left. Don't forget that minus sign. Equals, not like terms, can't combine them, minus 4x plus 1. Okay? Remember, positive 1 there. Be careful. A lot of times people think that they're done here. We still have that minus y. To get rid of the minus y, we can do a few things. We can divide by negative 1 or multiply by negative 1 to both sides. Here, I'll change it up a little. Let's multiply by negative 1. I take a negative 1 and multiply it to both sides of the equation. Make sure you put that multiplication symbol there, because a minus sign is for the negative 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. We have positive y here. Now distribute that negative 1 to both parts inside the parentheses. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. Positive 4 is our slope. And be careful, a lot of students stop and just bring down the plus 1. Negative 1 times positive 1 is a negative 1. We subtract that 1 there. Negative 1 is our y-intercept. And there we have our answer. Y equals 4x minus 1. I was given this problem. 11x minus 4y equals 32, and we're writing that in slope-intercept form. Goal here, get y by itself. To do that, I need to first subtract 11x to both sides. That cancels the 11x, giving me a minus 4y here on the left, and on the right, they are not like terms. We cannot combine them. Minus 11x here, plus 32. And now we need to go from here. We have a negative 4 here. That's being multiplied by y. Opposite of multiplication is division. Divide both sides by negative 4. Negative 4 here. And make sure you get both parts here. Negative 4. Negative 4's cancel. That gives us y by itself. Now I have a negative 11 divided by a negative 4. Two negatives make a positive. Nowhere else for this to simplify, so we just have a positive 11/4 x. That's our slope value, 11/4. Now we have 32 divided by -4. That becomes a -8. So we have -8 here. -8's our y-intercept. And now we are done. We have our answer. Y equals 11/4 x minus 8. If I was given this problem, 11x minus 8y equals -48. And we need to write that in slope-intercept form. First thing I want to do is get y by itself, and to do that, we subtract 11x. We subtract 11x to both sides. That cancels the 11x on the left-hand side, giving us -8y by itself on the left. On the right-hand side, these two are not like terms. We cannot combine them, so we have 11, or -11x here, minus 48. Now we have to keep going. We have a -8 times y, opposite of multiplication, division. Divide a -8 to both sides. That cancels here, and we have a positive y by itself. That's our goal. Now let's look at this part here. -8 goes to both parts versus -11. -11 divided by -8 is a positive, right? Remember, two negatives make a positive. Positive 11/8 x here. Then, to the right, -48 divided by -8 is a positive 6. Again, two negatives make a positive here, and don't forget to divide to both parts. We have plus 6. So, 11/8 is our slope, 6 is our y-intercept, and our final answer here is y equals 11/8 x plus 6. Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about writing linear equations, and we're using standard form here.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.
So, if I was given this problem through 1, 2, and our slope is 7, and we need to write this in standard form. Well, the first step really to do that is to kind of write it in point-slope form and adapt it. So, point-slope form here, we have y minus, and we want the y coordinate here. So that's a 2. Then that's equal to my slope, 7. And then we have x minus the x coordinate of the point, which is 1. And now what we want to do is really try to get all the variables we can to the right. So that's going to involve some math here, algebra. Distribute the 7 to both parts here. So let's bring down this y minus 2 equals 7x minus 7. Okay? Now we want to bring all of our variables, the x and y, to the left, and our numbers to the right. So we subtract a 7x to both sides. And then what we're going to do here, that cancels that out. And then also add a 2 to both sides. Let's bring that number over. We have a -7x here plus y equals -7 plus 2 is a -5 here, okay? And that is a version of our slope, or standard form here. Sometimes people want to make this all positive, make the x's positive, and or the x value positive. It's up to you. But right now we are in standard form. If you want, you multiply everything by -1. You need to get this, 7x minus y equals a positive 5. Either way, you can get that answer. It's up to you. But we're in the form ax plus by equals c. That's our standard form here. I was given this problem through 3, -1, and our slope is a -1. I'm going to first start with our point slope form and fill in these values here. So we have y minus our y1, which is the coordinate here, -1, equals our slope, they told us is -1 here, times x minus x1, which is 3. Now I'm going to simplify this and try to get it into our standard form by bringing our variables to the left, numbers to the right. So simplify this, y plus 1 here, 2 negatives make a positive, equals, distribute the -1 to both parts. So we have a -x here, and then we have plus 3. Okay? Remember, negatives make this a positive, that a negative. Let's bring our x to the left and then our number to the right. We add an x here to both sides, and we subtract a 1 to both sides. This gives us, we'll simplify here, this 1's cancel, these x's cancel, and we have x plus y on the left equals 3 plus a negative 1, or minus 1, which is a positive 2, and we have our answer in standard form. Remember, there's a 1 in front of the x and the y. So we have x plus y equals 2, and that is our final answer. I was given this problem through negative 2 comma 5, and our slope is negative 4. And we want to write this in standard form. To do that, we have to start with point slope form. So let's write this in point slope form, which is pretty easy to do. We have y minus our y1, which is 5, is equal to our m, our slope value, negative 4, x minus our x1 value, which is a negative 2. Okay? And now we want to simplify as much as we can. First thing I note here, this minus and negative is like plus a positive, so I'm going to do that there. So we have y minus 5 here equals, distribute the minus 4 to both parts, negative 4x, and negative 4 times a positive 2 is a negative 8. Keeps going back and forth, negative, positive, negative, positive. So now I want to get all my x and y's to the left, numbers to the right. To do that, I add a 4x to both sides, and then I'm going to add a 5 to both sides. This gets the 4x canceling here, the 5's canceling here, and we have 4x plus y equals to negative 8 plus 5, which is a negative 3. And we now have this in standard form. Remember that y has a 1 in front, that's the b value. But 4x plus y equals negative 3 is my final answer in standard form. I was given this problem through 3 comma 5, and our slope is 5/3 here. When we want to write this in standard form, first step, point slope form. So let's write this in point slope form and let's adapt it. So point slope form, we have y minus our y1, which is our only value here, 5 that we're given, equals our slope, 5/3, which is the m value, times x minus x1, which is 3. Okay? Now let's simplify this where we can. Y minus 5 here equals, distribute the 5/3 to both parts. 5/3 times x is 5/3 x, and then 5/3 times a minus 3. The 3's cancel, and we're left with just a minus 5 here. Okay? Now, this gets a little tricky in how you're going to adapt it and see what we can do, but we're going to do what we can. So, what we have here is we want to bring x over to the left, y's to the right. Or, sorry, not y's, the numbers to the right. So we subtract a 5/3 x here to both sides. And then we add a 5 to both sides. These 5 cancels. These 5/3 cancel with the x's. And negative 5 plus 5, that also cancels. So we have a 0 on the right, and we have a minus 5/3 x on the left, plus y equals 0. But we wouldn't be completely done here. It's kind of up to you. Technically, it's in standard form, but we try to make these integers if we can, which we can't here. So what I'm going to do is actually multiply everything by a negative 3. And that's because the denominator is 3. And the negative here, I like to have a positive in front for the a value. Okay? What this does is make, well, negative 3 times negative 5/3 is just a positive 5x. Negative 3 times y is a minus 3y equals 0 times negative 3 is still 0. And this makes it a little cleaner and looks a little nicer for our standard form of 5x minus 3y equals 0, and that is our answer. Let's given this problem through 2 comma negative 4, and our slope is negative 1, and we want to write this in standard form. First step is using point slope form. So let's do that. Let's write this in point slope form. Y minus y1, which is a negative 4, equals our slope, negative 1, times x minus x1, which is 2. Now we have it in point slope form. Let's write this in standard form by getting our x and y's to the left, where we can. Simplify first. Y minus a negative 4 is like adding a 4. Y plus a 4. Distribute the minus 1 here, and minus 1 times x is a minus x. Minus 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2. X is to the left, numbers to the right. So add an x to both sides. Subtract a 4 to both sides. X's cancel here, 4's cancel here, and we're left with x plus y equals 2 minus 4, which is a negative 2. And there we have our answer. Notice our a and b value are both just 1. We don't really write that there. So we have x plus y equals negative 2, and that's our equation in standard form. Let's given this problem through 2, 5, and our slope is undefined. And we want to write this in standard form. This one's actually kind of tricky, but once you understand it, it's very easy. With a slope as undefined, we can't really write a slope down. So our normal process here of using point slope form really, doesn't work. All we need to do is figure out, well, what does it mean by slope as undefined? And that's going to be a vertical line, okay? That's different than a slope of 0, which is a horizontal line. So a vertical line that goes up and down only crosses the x-axis at the same value, or the same value always, right? The same x value is the whole way through. The y value is what change. And it crosses the x-axis at our x value here. So that's just x equals 2. That's the equation of a vertical line. And that's really when our slope is undefined. This value here crosses through the x value of 2. So our equation makes a line cross through x equals 2. This right here. And it's kind of in standard form, right? If we really want to write it out, you can see it like this, right? We have x plus 0y equals 2, if you want to write it like that, and there's a 1 here. But in reality, x equals 2 suffices. So let's given this problem. Through 3, 1, and our slope is 1/2, and we have to write this in standard form. First step is actually using point slope form. So let's use this to write point slope form. So y minus our y1, which is 1 here, equals our slope 1/2 times x minus x1, which is 3. So now let's simplify this, and let's get our x and y to the left, numbers to the right. Y minus 1 here, we can just write like that. Let's distribute this 1/2 here. 1/2 here, we have 1/2 x, and then 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times minus 3 is a minus 3/2. Okay? So where can we go from here? Let's bring the x's to the left, numbers to the right. We add a 1 to both sides. That's our number. And we subtract a 1/2 x to both sides. We're left with, well, the 1's cancel. These 1/2 x's cancel. We have negative 1/2 x here plus y equals negative 3/2 plus 1 is a minus 1/2. Alright? Well, I don't like necessarily having a values that are fractions, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that fraction by multiplying both sides by a negative 2. And the reason why I chose negative 2 right there, right? I chose negative 2 because I saw a negative 1/2 here, and I knew when I multiplied them out, I get a positive 1. So negative 2 times negative 1/2 is a positive 1, so we can just write x here. Distribute the negative 2 to the y, and we have minus 2y. Over here, negative 1/2 times negative 2 is a positive 1. And now our answer is in standard form, nice and neatly. X minus 2y equals 1, and that is our final answer. This problem through negative 1, 2, and our slope is 2. And we want to write this in standard form. Our first step actually starts with point slope form. So to do that, what we need to do is take this and write it in point slope form using our formula. So y minus our y1, y coordinate, 2, equals slope, 2, which is the m value, times x minus x1, which is a negative 1. Okay? Now let's simplify this and get the y's and x values to the left, numbers to the right. So first way to do this, well, we can rewrite this as just y minus 2 without the parentheses, but then distribute the 2 here. 2 times x is 2x. Oh, and don't forget, minus a negative plus a positive. Helps you out there. 2 times positive 1 now is a positive 2. So now let's get the x's to the left. Y is already to the left. Numbers to the right. Subtract 2x here to both sides. And we add a 2 to both sides. These 2's cancel. 2x cancels here. And we have a minus 2x here. Plus y equals a positive 4. Now, if you want to have it a positive a value, all you need to do is multiply both sides by a negative 1. And what that does is take the value we found and really makes a positive and still keeps everything kosher here. Negative 1 times negative 2 is a positive 2x. Negative 1 times y is a minus y here. 4 times negative 1 is a negative 4. And now we have 2x minus y equals negative 4, and that is our answer in standard form. If this video was helpful for you, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. This helps us make more videos for you and for everyone else. So, as always, thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about writing linear equations with point-slope form.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.
So, if I was given this problem, through 4, 2, and is parallel to y equals negative 3/4 x minus 5. Well, point-slope form has a point and a slope, hence the name. So we have a point here, and we need to find something that's parallel to this line. So what we care about here is the slope of that line, which is negative 3/4. With that information, we actually can put it all together. We have y minus y1, which is a point that's given here, which is 2, is equal to our slope, negative 3/4, times x minus x1, which is 4 here. And there we have our answer. We can rewrite it without the parentheses if you want, or some of them. Negative 3/4 x, I guess, minus 4, almost messed up there. But that's it. This is actually a fairly easy way to write point-slope form, given that information. We just have to make sure we got the slope that we needed. Because remember, if it's parallel, they had the same slope, negative, which I wrote twice here, negative 3/4. So our answer, y minus 2 equals negative 3/4 times x minus 4. And there we have our answer in point-slope form. I was given this problem through negative 3, and it's parallel to y equals 7/3 x plus 3. The key here to find point-slope form here is to find the slope here of that line. The what it's parallel to, right? 7/3. That's our slope, so our new line will have the same slope. So we use that information plus the point they gave us into our formula. So y minus the y coordinate, which here is the same as the x, but make sure we know where we're getting it from. Negative 3 equals our slope, 7/3 times x minus our x value, negative 3 again. Now let's simplify this. Let's get rid of the negatives, right? Because 2 negatives make a positive. Let's make it look clean here. So we have minus a negative is plus a positive. So we have y plus 3 equals 7/3. X, same thing here, minus a negative plus a positive. X plus 3. And now we have it in point-slope form. Y plus 3 equals 7/3 x plus 3. And that is our final answer. Given this problem through negative 4, 0, and it's parallel to y equals 3/4 x minus 2, and we want to write this in point-slope form. Key thing here, we have a point, we need to find our slope. They tell us it's parallel to this line, so therefore they share the same slope, which is 3/4. We now have everything we need to write this in point-slope form. Let's use our formula. Y minus y1, which is 0, equals slope 3/4, got it right there, times x minus x1 minus 4. Okay, so we can actually simplify this a little bit, and let's do that. But we've got the basics here. Y minus 0, no one ever really writes that. Minus a 0 doesn't do anything, so we just have y here. 3/4 comes down, so does our equal sign. And minus a negative 4 is the same thing as adding a 4. So we have x plus 4 here, and now we have our answer in point slope form. Be careful, it almost looks like it's slope-intercept, but it's not. It's still in point slope form here. Y equals 3/4 times x plus 4, and there we have our answer. Let's given this problem through -1, 4, and it's parallel to y equals -5x plus 2. And we want to write this equation in point slope form. Well, what do we know about point slope form? We got point and a slope. We have a point here, but we have an equation that tells us parallel to y equals -5x plus 2. Parallel lines have the same slope. So our line shares the same slope as this line, which is -5 here. This one's in slope-intercept form. So we got our slope here, we have our point. Let's start cracking. We have y minus our y1, which is 4, equals slope -5 times x minus our x1 value, -1. And we now kind of have it in point slope form, but let's simplify. We have y minus 4 here, don't need to write those parentheses anymore. -5 here times x minus a -1 is like plus a +1. So we have +1 here, and there we have it. We have our point slope form here of y minus 4 equals -5 times x plus 1 as our answer in point slope form. It's given this problem through 2, 0, and it's parallel to y equals 1/3 x plus 3, and we want to write this in point slope form. Well, what do we need to do? We have a point, we need a slope. They give us our line is parallel to this line. This line has a slope of 1/3. Parallel lines have the same slope, so therefore our line has a slope of 1/3. So now let's use our equation. Y minus y1, which is 0 here, equals our slope here, 1/3, times x minus x1, which is 2. Okay? So now let's clean this up a little bit, and then we'll see where we're at. So we have it in point slope form, but let's clean it up. We can make it simpler. Y minus 0, no one writes that. We just have a y here, right? Subtract 0 doesn't do anything. 1/3 still up front, and then x minus 2, no need for the parentheses, or the extra set of parentheses, just x minus 2 here. And again, this almost looks like it's in slope-intercept form, but it's not. It's still in point slope form. Notice this part here is not exactly the same. So our answer in point slope form is just y equals 1/3 times x minus 2, and that's it. It's in point slope form. I was given this problem through 4, -4, and is parallel to y equals -x minus 4. We want to write this in point slope form. Well, point slope form has a point and a slope. We're given a point, we need a slope. Slope here, they tell us is parallel to this line. Well, we know parallel lines have the same slope. So what's the slope here? Y equals -x minus 4. That has a slope of -1. That value right here, really in front of the x, -1. Well, now we have a slope and a point. We can start our journey. We have y minus, using the formula, our y1, -4, equals m, our slope, -1, times x minus x1, which is 4. So now let's simplify this. It's already kind of in point slope form, but we can make it nicer. Y minus -4 is adding a +4. So we have y plus 4 here. All right, -1, with multiplication, we never really write it. We can just leave the negative sign out here and put the parenthesis. Y minus 4 here, get rid of the inside parentheses, don't need that. Y minus 4, and there we have our answer in point slope form. Y plus 4 equals a minus x minus 4, and there we have it in point slope form. I was given this equation or problem here through -2, 4, and our line's parallel to y equals -5/2 x plus 5, and we want to write this in point-slope form. We have a point, we need a slope. We have a line, and they tell us our line is parallel to this line. This line has a slope here of -5/2. Now we have all the information we need. Let's use our formula. Y minus y1, which is 4, equals our slope here, -5/2, and then x minus x1, -2. Be careful with the double negatives. So now we have it in point slope form, but let's simplify it to make it better. Y minus 4, leave it as such. -5/2 here, but that double negative that was tricky, let's make it easy. Minus a -2 is like adding a +2. So we have x plus 2 here, and now we have our answer in point slope form. Y minus 4 equals -5/2 times x plus 2 in the parentheses, and that's our answer in point slope form. I was given this problem through -4, -1, and it's parallel to y equals -1/2 x minus 1. We want to write this in point slope form. We have a point, but we don't have a slope yet. We have an equation. They tell us our line is parallel to this line. We know parallel lines share the same slope. Since this is in slope-intercept form, this -1/2 here is my slope. That slope matches the slope of the line that we need to find. So now we have all of our information, point and slope. So let's use our formula. Y minus y1, which is a -1. The parentheses help here. Slope, -1/2 times x minus x1, -4. And now we have it in point slope form, but it's not simplified. Let's make it nicer. Y minus -1, 2 wrongs make a right. So we have y plus 1. Well, in mathematics, not in real life. So y plus 1 here. Then we have a -1/2. And we're going to do the same thing here. Minus a -4 is adding a +4. So we have x plus 4 here. And now our answer is basically done. We have it, or is done. We have it in point slope form. Y plus 1 equals -1/2 times x plus 4 in the parentheses is our equation in point slope form that goes through this point, -4, -1, or -1, and is parallel to y equals -1/2 x minus 1. If you found this video informative and helpful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. This helps us make more math videos for you and for other people. So, as always, thanks for watching.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. Minute Math. Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. MinuteMathTutor.com.